our young directors, everything is storyboarded. They have it all laid out. He has it in his mind. So he can literally walk together and put a movie, an entire scene together, visually, in detail, that it takes years and years and years to develop that kind of skill. I mean, he literally makes the movie in his mind. And I found it to be just such a pleasure. It's almost like a vacation working with him.
People ask me, how do you look at a movie? It's very simple. You develop a screenplay and you prepare a movie, the pre-production. And that's like kind of dating somebody and building the foreplay, if you will, and building your relationship of love and a marriage. And then one day you start to shoot the film. And that to me is kind of like making love. So you put that whole picture together, you're developing, and then one day you go to the laboratory and your baby's born. It comes out and you look at it and now it's no longer yours. But when a picture's finally over, you kind of divorce yourself from it because you can no longer, it's out of your control and everything is gone. And that year of your life hopefully has been well spent and it's been productive and fulfilling. But it's gone.
The work that I have seen of his that I think is truly representative, the things like Lethal Weapon, are so reflective of what kind of a man he is and what kind of a personality he is, because there's dynamism at work all the time.
You know, I've worked on 4 films with Dick, and you don't do that for no reason. And sometimes the scripts, you know, they won't be there yet, but it doesn't matter because I like working with Dick. And it's because you know that they'll get there, and you know that he's going to make a really good film.
Well, watch. Now, don't worry. You know, I was driving before you were itching your daddy's pants.
I didn't know that.
You know what?
I didn't know that it was your birthday today.
No, it was yesterday.
Oh, well, happy birthday for yesterday. I'm sincerely happy birthday, man.
Thanks.
Maybe we'll stay alive long enough for me to buy you a present. I mean, you know, don't thank me now. I mean, it's the least I can do after all the kindness that you've shown me.
Richard Donner began his career in front of the camera as an actor for producer-director Martin Ritt in a television production of Human Bondage. Ritt cautiously suggested Donner had a limited career as an actor, so Donner turned to the production side of the business as Ritt's assistant, which led to a successful career as a director of television commercials. This work eventually led him to Los Angeles and the commercial production unit of Desilu Studios.
The other things I did there within the commercials was to do the show openings of the of the Lucy show, Lucy and Desi, and I'd do the commercials. They were Westinghouse commercials, and it was Betty Furness, who was the spokeswoman for Westinghouse, and some of these commercials would have and show openings would have, of course, Lucy and Desi and Bill Vance and Bill Frawley and Vivian Vance. In any event, there was a producer who was doing TV shows. And this man's name was Eddie Adamson. And he came over to me and he said, listen, if you can work with those 4, do you think you can work with Steve McQueen? And I said, hey, we were actors together, we studied, we motorcycled together. Sure, I'd love to. He said, great, I'd like you to do the Wanted Dead or Alive show. Mr. Adamson took me over to meet Steve McQueen, and I'll say hello again. Hey, Steve, how are you? Great. Hey, Dick, what are you doing here? Well, I'm here. I'm going to direct your next show, Steve. And there was this kind of deathly silence. And he said, oh, great, great. And I got home that night, and Ed Adamson called me. He said, look, I have a problem. He said, Steve doesn't want you directing. He said, you're an actor, and you direct commercials, and he doesn't think you're right for our show. I said, hey, thanks, you know, you gave me the shot, and did somebody come? He said, no, he said, I'm the producer. He said, you're going to direct this show. And Steve accepted me. And I got up and I did the first set up, and they called Steve out, and Steve came out, and I said, Steve, hi, great, good seeing you. I said, look, here's where you are. You're here behind the rock and the gun, and the guy's over there, and the horses, they're there, and the thing. And he said, nope. I said, what do you mean, nope? He said, I would never leave my back exposed. I said, but there's, where would you be? He said, you're the director, you figure it out. And he walked away. It was a Friday, and they wrapped the show early, and I went home, and I knew it was over. I picked up the phone, and I called McQueen, and I said, he said, what do you want? I said, Steve, I'm sorry, I thought this was going to work, but it's not going to work, and I know you want me to quit, so I'm going to quit. And there was this pause. He says, what do you mean you're going to quit? I said, I'm going to quit. He said, nobody quits my show. I said, well, we have a problem. He says, yeah, we got a problem, but you're not quitting. You know, no, nobody quits my show. I said, can we talk? And he said, yeah, be at my house at 7:27. He and a whole bunch of guys from the show and people he used to hang out with, and some of the people I knew, who were in there, and they were drinking wine and having laughs and everything. And so Sunday night at about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, a little bit drunk, feeling just wonderful, McQueen came over to me and he said, hey man, I'm sorry. He said, let's take a shot at it tomorrow. And I said, well, I'm going home. He said, no, you can't drive, go to sleep here. And I went to sleep on the couch. The next morning I drove in with him and his racing little Jaguar, and we made it out to the ranch in record time, and we did 2 days work in 1 day. And we had broken the barriers on the silliest way, not actor, director, but as just old buddies finally allowing the breathing room, I guess, that he could accept me for what I was going to do. And I stayed on with Steve for, I think I did 6 or 7 shows. But it started my career in television.
Well, Dick Donner and I know each other back in the old days when Dick was directing television. I love Dick. We did a Twilight Zone together, one of the last Twilight Zones ever done. It was basically a 2-character piece with John Van Drielen and myself. And I played a defector in a hotel room with a gun pointed at me and a booby trap. And so basically there were 2 actors and Dick. And so it was, again, one of those little kind of pressure cooker conditions, because you only shot that show in a very few days.
During the 60s and early 70s, Donner went on to direct such well-known TV series as The Fugitive, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Kojak, as well as a number of television movies of the week. During the same period, he also directed 3 feature films: X-15 with Charles Bronson, Salt and Pepper with Sammy Davis Jr. and Peter Lawford, and Lola, again with Charles Bronson. But Donner claims he wasn't really ready for feature films until he directed the now classic thriller, The Omen, in 1975.
When The Omen came and I felt I was ready for features, having tried 3 times in the past and I wasn't ready, the thing I really learned was I had to surround myself properly. First of all, as I said, I was so fortunate to have gotten Peck and Remick. It was just at a stroke in their lives at that moment that they were susceptible to wanting to do a film. They accepted my premise that it would be a mystery suspense thriller.
This is not a human child. Make no mistake. Is there proof? Oh, yes. He bears a birthmark, a sequence of 6s. So says the Bible to all the apostles of Satan.
He doesn't have it.
He must have it.
I've bathed him. I know every inch of him.
If it is not visible on the body, it will be beneath the hair. Remove it. You must be devoid of pity.
I planned this great shot, a shot I always wanted to do, where I was going to suspend her, have her knocked over, suspend her for a moment on wires, and then I was going to put her on a crane and have a piece of rubber on the bottom and put her right in front of the camera on a little roll thing, and I would start up on top with her and just hold her on the crane and bring her all the way down to the floor so you'd feel her floor falling, and just take her right down to the rubber floor. And so I sent the special effects man out to her house to measure her for this body harness that she would be put in. And I got a call back from there, and he said, Miss Remick refuses to be measured for a body harness. I said, well, she's got to be, because I said, let me talk to her. And she got on the phone, and I said, look, Lee, you've got to have this on to be safe on this rig. She said, I'm not going to get on that rig. I said, look, Lee, it's safe as the day is long. And then she said, then you do it. And I had to shoot this the next day. And out of it evolved a great scene. The child knocks her off her footing. But as she was hit, there's a goldfish bowl that she has set on this balustrade, and her arm hits it. And in the high-speed camera, I shot the goldfish bowl falling away from us. Then we took that floor, and we put it on a wall. And we took plastic and cut it out like water. And we took the dead sardines and pinned them to the wall. And I put Lee Remick right up to the lens of the camera on a dolly, little flat dolly, and she was standing. And we shot in slow motion, and she came away from the camera. They were just dollying her away on the floor. You see the floor behind her. She turned, the dolly turned for her, and she smashed into the floor. And actually, she was standing up all the way.
He's amazing because the minute that he steps onto the set, he commands attention. Dick is very demanding of energy. He's a man who has phenomenal energy himself, and he wants that in front of the cameras at all time. And when he comes in, he has that energy, and he pumps it into everybody else by kidding around, by jumping around, by, you know, he won't wait that long. He'll go, why am I waiting? Why am I waiting? And pretty soon the whole room is hopping, and it does. It feels like a party.
In 1977, Donner received a phone call that would secure his future as a first-class director. The film in question was Superman.
And one day I was at home and my phone rang, and a man was on the other end with an accent, and he said, my name is Alexander Salkind. You know who I am? I said, no. He said, you don't know who I am? I said, no. He said, I produced many films, and one of them was Three Musketeers. He said, do you know Superman? I said, of course I know Superman. He said, well, we're producing it, and my director is no longer going to be on the picture, and we'd like you to do it. And I'm sending you the script. And he said, I'm going to pay you a lot of money. I said, oh, really? He said, yes, we're doing 2 pictures. I'm going to pay you $1 million. What? $1 million? I mean, that was a license plate. I mean, that was like somebody using the expression, all the tea in China when you were a kid. So they told me everything was prepared and all ready to go, and they showed me their preparation flight. They had this film they ran, and it was like the actor, the stuntman they tried with, he would run and jump in one cut. The next cut, he was literally on a board, which was under his costume, and they had him on wires going across, and then they would cut and drop him down in the scene. I say, hey, fellas, this is I forget, with the 80s, and the beginning of the 80s, and this is Superman, and if he's going to fly, this picture's not going to work unless he really flies.
Flying could not be a spur-of-the-moment idea, like, I think I'll get up and fly away now. It took a lot of people to make it happen. And I'm very indebted to all of them. And again, what Dick Donner was able to do was to make every one of the people on the flying team feel that they were an important part of the job. So we had guys who ran the wires, and we had guys who did mechanical arms. We had guys with special lenses, all of which had to work together. There were a lot of different ways we did the flying. Sometimes it was literally on the end of a crane out in the middle of 57th Street. Sometimes it was on the side of a studio wall in a fiberglass mold. Sometimes it was hanging on wires in front of a blue screen for days at a time, looking at playback of a scene on a TV monitor. We would get sometimes about 2 shots a day. I mean, and Donner was very, very critical. He kept the standard of the movie up very high, because he would come in sometimes and he would see a shot and say, no, that's not going to be good enough, I have to go back and do it again. So he was tough on everybody, and yet he was fun. It was a kind of tough love, you know, like, I'm doing this for your own good. You know, you're not going to want to see your name on this picture unless we get it right.
I was on that picture for a year, and it took us about 6 months before one day we sat in dailies and we saw Superman fly for the first time, and it brought tears to everybody's eyes because he's flying. I had never met Marlon Brando, so I called Coppola, who had done The Godfather. And I said, Francis, is there anything you can tell me? He said he's a genius. He's delightful. He's phenomenal. He said, you'll be awestruck the way he talks. He said, if you really listen to when he talks, he always hangs himself. So just listen. I said, okay. And then we drove over and went up to Brando's house. Most gracious icon I've ever met in my life. And when we sat down, and for hours, we talked. We talked about everything but Superman. And then finally he said, well, you're not here to hear all these stories. We're here to talk about my wardrobe, right? He said, I think I'd like to play it like a bagel. He said, I've done my homework on this. I said, yeah. He said, well, how do you know what people look like up there? They could look like bagels. He said, but because I'm sending my son to Earth to save him, I am going to make my son into the image of the humans and send him. But I can be a bagel. And it really made sense. You know, we're all starting to listen. Producers going, oh yeah, good idea, Mr. Brando. I'm going, shut up. Tom's looking at me, we know what to do. And we listened, and it went on and on and on. And finally, he said, what do you think? I said, well, I tell you, Marlon. I said, a while back you told me a story about your little fable you were telling your child, and you said that the fox jumped over the log, went around the wall, and your son said no, went over the log, and over the wall and around the log, and you said children know. He said, yeah, why? I said, well, Marlon, Jor-El, the father of Superman, has been around since 1936, and there isn't a child from 4 years of age to my age that doesn't know what Jor-El looks like. And he looks like you the way you are now. And he said, I really hung myself talking too much, didn't I? I said, you may have. He said, show me my costume. And I showed him, and that was it. And it was just delightful.
This is no fantasy.
I was introduced to Gene Hackman, and then he had a mustache. And I was just starting to grow a mustache at the time. I had about a 3 weeks growth. And we talked for a little bit, and we talked about Lex Luthor and who he was and what. And I said, gee, Mr. Hackman, I said, you know, would you consider shaving your head so you don't have to wear one of those bald caps? He said, I'm not going to shave my head, and I'm not going to wear a bald cap. He said, they're terrible. They are. They're terribly uncomfortable. Water pours out of your head. I said, well, Lex Luthor was bald. He said, that's your problem. I said, oh my God. I said, well, at least you'll take off the mustache. He said, no, I like my mustache. I said, but everybody knows Lex Luthor is bald, and he has no mustache. And he said, it's your problem. So I went back to England, and we were shooting on other pieces of the film, and I had a call. Gene Hackman had arrived, and he was up in makeup. I called up there, and I said, Stuart, this is Dick, don't say anything. Just tell me, does he have his mustache? He said, yes. I said, oh, great. And I'd shaved mine off by then. I got bored with it. I said, Stuart, I said, I want you to leave there, and I want you to come down to my office. So I said, Stuart, he came down. I said, I want you to put a mustache on me, but I don't want to see any lace. I want to make it as perfect as you've ever done in your life. And I walked up to the makeup room where they were doing some tests on Gene, and he was in a chair. And I said, hi, Gene. He said, hi. I said, listen, when I worked out the hair, he said, yeah, that's great. I said, you don't mind wearing the skull cap for the ball cap? He said, no, I'll wear it that one day. I said, great. I said, but the mustache's got to come off. He said, no, the mustache stay. I said, listen, take off yours, I'll take off mine. And he looked at me and he said, oh, okay, but you can do it now. I said, yeah. I said, go ahead, Stuart, take his mustache off. And Stuart started to shake. I said, take his mustache off. And Stuart went and he used his electric razor, and he took it and he shaved him clean, and Gene said, okay, you next. I said, I can do it from here, and I went like this. And I peeled my mustache off. And he just stared at me, and I saw his neck go from here to here and started to throb, and I knew I was dead. And he looked, and it took about 30 seconds, and he broke out laughing.
I think what makes Dick Donner a unique director are two things. His desire to enable his co-workers to do their best, and a real innocence about the story, so that he can look at it really from an audience's point of view and say, tell me the story.
In 1980, Donner sensitively directs Inside Moves with John Savage, David Morse, and Deanna Scarwood. Then in 1982, he directs The Toy with Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason.
Choosing the material you want to make in this business is, everybody has another way of doing it. In my case, it's either something I develop from scratch and I fall in love with it and I have to make it, or it's something I read, somebody submits it to me, and I want to see that picture so badly, and since I've read it, I see it, I've seen it already. Because when you read it as a director, you really shoot the picture. And if it's something I read and I shoot in my mind and I want to see it so badly, that's the decision I've made, because I want to see that movie the way I saw it, not the way somebody else does. The Goonies was it came along in my life. It was Steven Spielberg. We were friends for many, many years, and he called me one day and he said he had this wonderful script. And I accepted it, and we improvised a lot, and we went out and we shot this picture, and I had the best time I think I've ever had in my life, or one of the best times. But every morning, I'd come to work, and I had these 7 or 8 children there, and if you hugged one and you didn't hug the other 8, they were depressed all day because you were being a favorite to one, and if you yelled at one, they all cried, and they all got upset, and it was just an incredible education to me about children and about actors, and we had this wonderful experience. And when the picture was over, it was near the last week of the shoot, and the children were very strange. Here we had shot for maybe 10 weeks, and there was this wonderful homogenous family, and a lot of love, and a lot of hugs, and a lot of laughing, and crying, and kissing, and wonderful. But this last week, it was very strange. They were very alienated to me, and I thought, well, I don't know that much about children, I guess, because I thought I really knew these kids inside and out by now. Since it had been a very difficult film, I had just bought a little house in Hawaii, and I decided I was going to take a week or 2 off before I went into the editing. So I flew over to Hawaii, and I was there one day. As I walked out onto the lawn to look at the sunset, and I saw Josh Brolin, who played the oldest son in the movie, coming up the lawn, and he had a surfboard. I said, what the hell is he doing here? And he came over to me, he said, oh hi, Dick. He said, we just stopped by, I told you I was going to go surfing, and I said, oh yeah. He said, well, my mother took me to Hawaii, and I said, oh great. But he kept looking behind me. And I turned around, and there was the entire cast. I mean, the entire cast, both the heavies, the adults, the children, everybody. Spielberg had flown them all over as a surprise for me. And he had told them a week before that if anybody tipped it, and I found out they were coming, the trip would be off. So that week of total alienation was the best acting those kids ever did.
The 1985 production of Lady Hawk, which has since become a cult classic, also introduced Donner to his future wife.
Dick and I met in, it was actually 1981 when he came on to Lady Hawk. And, I was producer, he was director, and we almost shot in Czechoslovakia. So we spent the first year in '81 going to Czechoslovakia checking sets, locations, not sets, but locations. And ultimately decided when we did film the movie in 1983 that we would film in Italy instead.
She came into the office one morning, and I said, how was your weekend? She had gone to see her husband. I didn't know he had a problem. And she said, my marriage is off. And tears came to her eyes. And I looked at her, and I had always seen her as this hard-nosed, tough lady producer who was my buddy, but all of a sudden I saw her as this wonderful, vulnerable woman for the first time in my life. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And then I fell in love with my friend.
In 1987, Donner would release the first of 3 Lethal Weapon films, starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. Perhaps no two screen characters have been more embraced by the public than the characters created by Gibson and Glover under Dick Donner's direction.
And I read it that night, and I gave it to Lauren, and I said, this is just wonderful. I've never done an action film, and this one seems to have a great deal of meaning. I mean, it's got a wonderful character in it. He's quite dimensional. There's a great arc in the character development of the character Riggs, and there's a great chance of a relationship in here of two buddies. Joel Silver was the producer, and I was insecure about the way he would produce. It turned out to be he's as good as they come. He's only second to my wife.
We met at that point, and we started working on the script, and he brought so much to the party. I mean, he's just such a incredibly talented, creative, brilliant filmmaker. Besides being 100 years old, and he just immediately infused it with so much energy and excitement. I mean, the script was good, but he took it way beyond whatever the potential was for the material and made it into something, which became a very successful series.
We were casting, and it was very difficult because first of all, I had a cast with a combination in mind, with two people, not just one. And somebody suggested Mel Gibson. He had done, I think The River, Mrs. Soulful, and he'd done the Mad Max series. I thought he was a sensational actor.
I went over to his house, and I was riding on the front of the hood of a car, yodeling like like somebody from the Swiss Alps and drinking beer. And I got off the front of the car and went up to his house and proceeded to do chin-ups and handsprings around his living room. And I think that when the script came in, the Martin Riggs guy was definitely unbalanced and kind of wacky and energetic and physical, and he sort of remembered me sort of doing this acrobatic act around his living room. I think, if I remember right, I remember him sitting in the corner sort of almost looking like afraid, but he just wondered if I was going to break the 1,000-year-old Ming vase or something.
Marion Dougherty is a casting director here at Warner Brothers. She said the other character, Murtaugh, is a wonderful actor that I used in Spielberg's Color of Purple, named Danny Glover. And so we sent it to Danny, who was doing a play in Chicago. And so I asked them if Danny could fly in. There was one night he was dark in Chicago, I think it was a Sunday night. So if he came in Sunday morning on the red eye, we would do a reading at my house, and he'd go back to do the play.
It's interesting because I think about that. He had knockers, because Mel is from Australia. Knockers are things you have for breakfast or whatever. But he didn't have grits, is what I have for breakfast. We read the script of the first Lethal Weapon, and the entire script. We would read the parts ourselves, the other parts ourselves. And then, after we finished reading the script, Donner announced, "Let's go make the movie."
It was just a hard picture to shoot. It was a happy picture to shoot. My cast and crew were just wonderful, and it was like a family, and everybody contributed, and it was kind of very magical. There was a scene in there that was the pivotal scene in the movie for me, and it's an attempted suicide by Martin Riggs, Mel Gibson, where he's just so disillusioned with life, and he's lost his wife in an accident, and he sits in a trailer, and moment of depression, takes his police weapon, pistol, and contemplates suicide. And we always carried this trailer with us on the back of a truck. And every once in a while I'd go to Mel and I'd say, "Mel, do you think you're up to the..." He said, "No, no." And then one night, very late, we were almost ready to wrap. We were on the back lot, and Mel said, "Let's try it." And he started this scene. And I let him go, and he started to improvise, and the scene started to happen. There was no way of saying cut. The scene never ended. And at a given point, I just had to run in, break it, and hug him. And I saw that scene on film the next day, and that moment made that film totally above all others.
You cannot not get along with Richard Donner. He cares about what's happening with you. He cares about people it's something that happens, and there's something magic about it that's working with him. Truly magical.
I remembered when we blew up the building in Orlando, Florida, for the beginning of Lethal 3. I mean, Donner had just rehearsed this thing, I mean, over and over. The guys, we wanted to have Mel and Danny in the shot when the building exploded.
It was like a real race. We were like, get in there. We were grabbing each other to sort of get out in front. We were going fast because we didn't quite trust the fact that maybe we wouldn't get hit with something. And you could feel the heat and the shockwave hit you. It was real interesting.
In 1988, Donner tackles Scrooged. The film was a satirical takeoff on the Charles Dickens classic Scrooge, starring Bill Murray, Robert Mitchum, and John Forsythe.
He's so loud on the set that if he just says, John, you do it. You know, there's no talking back and forth about what the character was. He says, do it. And then he turns, camera, and you got it. It was something that I did for a friend, and a man that I have great admiration and affection for.
Feared by men, adored by women.
Adored? Let's be honest, Lou. You paid for the women.
I'm warning you, Frank. Don't waste your life as I did mine.
Waste? How can you say that? You're a legend in this business. You're the man who invented the miniseries.
Mankind should have been my business. Charity, mercy, kindness, that should have been my business. Don't wait. Get yourself involved. Now, it's too late for me, but it's not for you. You can be saved. You are going to be visited by 3 ghosts.
Ooh, 3 ghosts.
3 ghosts, Frank. Expect the first one tomorrow at noon.
God, tomorrow's bad for me, Lou. As a matter of fact, the whole rest of the week is a washout. Ouch. Well, maybe we could have drinks, say Thursday. You, me, the ghosts, Trader Vic's around 4.
This is no joke, Frank. This is your last chance.
All right. I could squeeze you in for a breakfast.
I did 2 pictures with Hitchcock, and he sat all the time. Dick he goes, you know, he's a runner. He never stops. He's the original ever-ready battery rabbit, you know, that goes all the time.
Radio Flyer was a very emotionally difficult film to make for everybody involved. Not so much for the children, because the 2 children were just wonderful actors who've all gone on to wonderful careers. You never really allowed them to know the dark side. They were acting, they were having fun, they were playing a game. But for myself, for the adult cast in it, it was a great burden. And then it was an important picture to make, because child abuse is something that at that point of our lives was just starting to come out, but had been sheltered, and still to a greater degree is. We would have screenings, and we would have a little group at the end of each screening where we would sit and talk. What was your feeling in the film? And you usually have a dozen people. And invariably, there wasn't one night that we had a preview in that screening that somebody in that group of 12 didn't say, it happened to me. And some of the people said, I've never said this before, but it happened to me.
Before we started filming, you know, especially in the interviews that I had with him, he would tell me, you know, in brief, what the character was and what he thought the character meant. And I also, through reading the script, had to figure out, you know, what my point of view of the character was also. We became our friends. I mean, Joey Mazzello was, who played my brother in the movie, and I. We really, really loved to be around Richard. I mean, my way of characterizing him in animal form would be a bear. He's just this big, loving bear, and that's what he is, and he's great. He's just a really good person, and he's a lot of fun to be around.
When his friend Mel Gibson bought the theatrical rights to Maverick from Warner Brothers, Gibson turned to Donner to helm the project. It would prove to be another successful collaboration between the two men.
I knew he was developing a screenplay. He kept talking around it. And one day he called me, he said, listen, can I come over and see you? It was a Sunday, and I thought maybe something was wrong.
I sort of like, you know, rang the doorbell, you know, killed 3 bodyguards, strangled his German Shepherd, and sort of like gained access to his kitchen where he had the food, so.
I was eating breakfast. He ate most of my breakfast. He ate my wife's breakfast. Then he said, listen, can I leave this with you? I said, what's that? He is a little shy, too. I said, what? He said, it's a screenplay. I said, yeah, sure. I said, what, do you want to critique? You want me to star in it or what? He said, no, I'd like you to direct it. And I said, what is it? He says, Maverick.
And he read it and he said, I don't know. He said, I don't know. And I said, come on, what's wrong with it? He said, I don't know. He said, you could use a bit of this and a bit of this, so? And then he left it. I guess he let it stew for a while and he really started to like it. And he thought he could sort of see where it was going because he really brings himself to it and changes stuff like crazy.
What? Look, I don't see what's so great about it. Hey, whoa, son, there. Just slow down there.
Where's the fire, son? I mean, slow down, don't shoot me, okay? I'm just trying to expound. I was just saying, I don't see what's so great about being brave. I mean, I'm a card player. You know, I play cards, and you call me a gambler. I want to become an old gambler. You, on the other hand, are a gunfighter. And an exceptional one at that, from what I hear. So if I decided to go up against you, I mean, what chance would I have had? Answer? 0. Absolutely none whatsoever. Want to see it again? Damn thing won't stay in the holster. Whoop! I must have a spring in there. Oh, come on, kid, let's just play poker.
We had wanted James Garner to be in the film, but really as a cameo. And so we sent the script to his agent, and the agent said, look, James thinks it's really wonderful, but he doesn't want to play a small part in it. Thank you very much anyway. And before he hung up, he said, who's going to play the other character? I said, well, it's not said yet. No, and he said, Garner would love to play it. I said, are you kidding? Not to play Maverick, but to play his father? And you don't know it's his father until the end of the movie. He said, yeah.
Decrepit old has-been? Couldn't sneak up on a corpse. You got $500,000 in that satchel over there, and your gun is 8 feet away. Not smart. Not smart at all.
Guess not. Well, I guess it's plain to see who won the toss-up. What'd you shoot the Commodore in the back, did you?
No. Good idea, no. I really enjoyed nailing that bastard. Just no room in poker for cheats. That's one gambler won't be able to touch a deck of cards this side of the Mississippi.
You know, my old pappy always used to say, there is no more deeply moving religious experience than cheating on a cheater.
I never said that once. You've been misquoting me all your life.
What, are we gonna quibble over flying points?
You never even get a floor. I'm sick of it.
And then somebody said Jodie Foster. I said, come on, Jodie Foster's not going to do this. And she's a very dedicated actress. They said, well, you know, it doesn't hurt. Let's just send it to her.
Yeah, you know, Maverick's one of the few movies that I've ever done this way. Usually I'm incredibly picky, and I really spend a lot of time talking about, you know, how the movie can change and, you know, what needs to be done and all of that. And this film, I read it on a Thursday, and I said yes on a Friday, and by Saturday morning I was in costumes. It was just amazing.
Help myself. My very being just cried out to hold you.
Well, stop by any time.
I know we may never see each other again, so I think it's safe to say that you are the most blindingly attractive man that I've ever seen.
Oh, well. possibly go on without my wallet? If you don't give me back my money, I'll have your ass thrown in jail.
Damn.
And so Maverick came to be, and then we needed the Commodore, and who else better than that big crazy guy that puffs his cigars, Jimmy Coburn. I mean,
he says, Coburn for the Commodore? And they all kind of nod. He says, okay, it's set then. Okay, you got the part. Let's see you later, man. Let's go over and go see April about your costume.
Welcome to my ship, the Lauren Bell. And welcome to the first ever annual All Rivers Raw Poker Championship. Rules are simple. We play till we drop. Winner takes all. The dealer can call one break of 1 hour. As soon as you're busted, you're gone. 20 of us playing, which means there's going to be 19 broken hearts. Let's make it a great contest, an honest great contest. And for that reason, I've imported one of the West's most remarkable lawmen, Marshal Zane Cooper. He's going to show us how to run things. Come on up here, Coop. Tell us how you're going to do it.
we surrounded ourselves in that with every great Western TV actor I could possibly get. There wasn't one we asked. And I said, look, we just want you in this movie. It's not a part. It's a character. It's a card game. And I'd love to see all your faces there. And it's like saying, thank you for making this movie possible. And not one of them said no.
His style of filmmaking is incredibly collaborative, but at the same time, I mean, he is the center of attention at all times. And you can't stop laughing the whole movie. Even while you're doing the takes, if he likes what you're doing off camera, he'll start talking over your dialogue and going, yeah, kiss her, yeah, now move around, no, go out the door, no, come back. I mean, while you're talking, and part of the concentration is to be able to continue acting while there's this guy shouting.
It's like going to a party every day. It was one of those films where you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, oh, God, I can't wait to get there. Boom, pop in your car. Boom, I want to have coffee and see what's happening. All the people who were there. I mean, it was wonderful.
To tell you the truth, this experience was so fun for me. If I could only make movies with Mel and Dick Donner, I probably would. And under Donner's guidance, I think everybody was so keen on doing the best work they could without any of the egos and the drama and the problems, that they just followed that lead, and it was a really, it was like being on vacation.
Well, the next project I'm going to do is The Assassins. It's more, again, of a thriller, and it's a good piece. It's a wonderful piece. It's a delightful piece. For me, it's very unusual because I think we can deliver a very different Sylvester Stallone to the audience, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Well, quite frankly, I think Richard is the kind of director I would like to be. He's a big child, a young adult. He's brilliant. He has a real power to communicate. He has complete control of the set, but he's not an abuser of power. And he understands the camera so well. A lot of people wouldn't realize it if they're not in this business, but majority of directors today are young directors. Everything is storyboarded. They have it all laid out. He has it in his mind. So he can literally walk together and put a movie, an entire scene together, visually, in detail, that it takes years and years and years to develop that kind of skill. I mean, he literally makes the movie in his mind. And I found it to be just such a pleasure. It's almost like a vacation working with him.
When we do a movie like for 4 months with Dick Donner, you really enjoy making movie. That's the way it used to be. You know, a long time ago, people were telling stories, you know, how movie making was fun, you know, and we somehow lost that kind of a feeling in Hollywood, you know. In Hollywood, movie making became such a business, and it's almost like no fun in it anymore. But Dick Donner keeps it fun for us.
He picks a team of people that have the same attitude as he has, which is very positive, and let's have fun making this movie. So not only is it fun working with Dick, but you know that you're going to have fun on the movie as a whole, because the whole crew will reflect that attitude, that happy attitude. What you don't know about Richard is that We call him Anti-Magnetic Man because everything he touches breaks. And on the set he comes on and we go, here's Anti-Magnetic Man. He has we have a lot of toys, Dick has a lot of toys, and they're all broken. They're always in the shop, the boats, the cars, they're always in the shop being fixed. And he's very good himself, actually. He can take something apart and put it back together, but if he sits in your car's gonna break.
As far as the future for me goes, I would like to cool it a little bit, but I don't see how, because when I'm not working, I'm a bastard to live with. I mean, it's just, it's a racehorse. You know, I'm waiting for the bell to go so I can get out of the gate. I've been one of those blessed to be in the motion picture industry and blessed to be successful. And I just want to live with my blessings as long as I can.